The Elder Scrolls 6 is doomed to fail. This is a fact I've felt to be true for quite some time, but it's only recently that I've begun to deliberate exactly why I think the sequel to Skyrim will fall short. To be clear, I don't mean fail in terms of a lack of sales or general critical acclaim, rather I believe the Elder Scrolls 6 is likely to fail the series' long-term fans, and if you're watching this video then it's likely that you are one of those fans. To get to the heart of the problem regarding the next game, it's poignant to recount the popular history of the Elder Scrolls series. Whilst the games preceding Morrowind did receive significant critical acclaim, it was only with the release of the third Elder Scrolls game that the Elder Scrolls series became a big player in the world of RPGs, not least because Bethesda had tripled their workforce specifically for Morrowind. The third game in the series allowed players to immerse themselves in deep lore that at times was quite challenging to understand. The theology behind the tribunal of Vivec, Sothersil and Olmalexia will take wider in-game reading to fully comprehend, perhaps partly because the trio appear to be, very loosely, based off the real-world Trimurti, the three dominant gods of Hinduism. The deep lore of Morrowind, combined with a compelling narrative and the truly amazing graphics that we can still appreciate to this day, set a solid framework for future Elder Scrolls games to be modelled off. It seemed as if Morrowind had hit the right spot in terms of how to explore the diverse and deep world of the Elder Scrolls. But Oblivion broke away from the successful framework of its predecessor upon its release in 2008, which caused some concern among fans of Morrowind at the time. Sure, the game pleased players who were new to the series, such as me, as well as many long-time players, and there was nothing inherently wrong with the game. In fact, Oblivion received better ratings than Morrowind from a few critics at the time. It was simply that it had taken the Elder Scrolls series down a different line to Morrowind. The story of the game was more plodding and predictable. There was no real need to understand the lore and theory behind the Mythic Dawn or Mehrunes Dagon. You could quite easily complete the game by simply following the general good versus evil theme. Skyrim took a similar route to Oblivion in its linearity as well, splitting more away from the mold Morrowind had created. In contrast to Oblivion's and Skyrim's relative simplicity, Morrowind forced the player to discover more about the Nerevarine prophecy in various quests, such as the ones where the player is implored to learn about the dissident priests. Again, reading through the texts of the priests was challenging, and a grasp of the theory behind the dissident priests was needed to truly comprehend the game's story. Morrowind also explored some more challenging themes, for example the morality behind divinity. The main questline raised the question of whether the gods are morally good, a real-world question that's challenged real-world theologians for many years. Oblivion and Skyrim too explored some dark and interesting themes, but not in the same complicated way as Morrowind. All the villains in Oblivion were just that, pure villains. You could tell from the get-go that Mehrunes Dagon was just a full-on bad guy. Dagothr in Morrowind, on the other hand, was more complicated. The player never distinctly learns, by the end, who's more evil between the Tribunal and the leader of the Sixth House. In essence, both Oblivion and to a slightly lesser extent Skyrim seemed much more like action-adventure games that were simply set in the Elder Scrolls universe, as opposed to a game, like Morrowind, which acted as a medium from which to explore and learn about the Elder Scrolls world. It's completely understandable as to why Bethesda decided to take this route and deviate from the complexity of Morrowind though, fundamentally by making the game more accessible to a wider and perhaps younger audience. The game's sales would increase and the series would become more popular as a result. I have to make clear as well that I don't dislike Oblivion or Skyrim compared to Morrowind. In fact, for many years I actively preferred Oblivion to any other Elder Scrolls game. It's just more that as I've matured and experienced Morrowind, I've begun to see more clearly the worrying path that the Elder Scrolls games are taking. It seems that with each game the focus shifts more from exploring the complex lore of the series to adventure and experience, which, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy, but it's not what I necessarily want to experience as much from an Elder Scrolls game, and I certainly don't want to see the story and lore substituted for the sake of gameplay. It's totally valid at this point to point out that maybe I expect too much from the series, but truly I believe that for a world as vivid, compelling and interesting as that of the Elder Scrolls, an action-adventure game just doesn't do it justice. For the Elder Scrolls 6 to be truly successful, it has to be both unique, but to return an aspect to the roots of Morrowind. I'd love to see new ideas and concepts implemented in the Elder Scrolls 6. In fact, I'd hate to see a game that just copied the format of the third game. Yet, I truly believe that the next game needs to be as in-depth, lore-wise, as Morrowind, and have as good and compelling a story. The game needs to be harder to explore emotionally and intellectually. The main quest shouldn't just be about eradicating some external evil that threatens Nirn, but about finding your own feet and establishing your own ideas and making your own decisions in a world fraught with danger. I suppose that all I'm really trying to say is that I hope the next game will be a joy to experience intellectually and emotionally, and not merely a bland adventure game masquerading as an Elder Scrolls title. And yeah, that was directed at ESO. Thanks for watching this video. I know that it's different to what I normally post, but I felt like this was something I needed to address. If you liked this sort of video and would be interested in similar ones, then be sure to let me know in the comments section below.